And this is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So today we continue with the Gospel of Mark and his theme from last week in the vote of trust overcoming fear. And we listen to the story of Jairus' daughter. It's a story that's told in all three synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The details, however, differ in each one. And the fact that the stories differ helps us to realize that they're not intended to be read as detailed, moment-by-moment narratives of Jesus' life, but as stories rich in symbolism, metaphor, and spiritual truth. They're allegorical, not historical. So Jairus can teach us an awful lot about trust and patience and the truth about resurrection. We tend to think of resurrection as a single one-time event that we celebrate on Easter. But the writer of Mark is challenging us to look at resurrection as a perspective, as a way of living. Jairus, though his situation was dire, he had faith, he had trust. He tracked down Jesus and asked for help. He didn't waste time moaning about his devastating situation. Everyone else around him was weeping and wailing. So now today's lectionary reading skips over a whole story that happens in this narrative of Mark 5 and leaves out the story of the hemorrhaging woman who is healed when she touches the hem of Jesus' garment. Have you ever noticed when people start dying in the New Testament, Jesus is never in a rush. Never in a rush to go and rescue them. So Jesus stops and takes his time to attend to this poor woman on his way to Jairus' house. That had been so exasperating for Jairus. Imagine being in that position. Remember the story of Lazarus, who didn't arrive until he was in the ground several days, and his sisters being upset and saying, "Why didn't you come sooner?" But Jesus didn't look at the world through the eyes of despair like we might. He doesn't suffer from anxiety, pushing to get things fixed before it's too late. He moves at a slower, more deliberate pace and lingers in unexpected distractions and takes his time and what we might think are unwelcome detours. I don't know about you, but that's a powerful lesson for me. All right, so getting back to our story, after much delay, Jesus continues on his way and arrives at the house of the little girl. And someone comes up to Jairus and said, "Your daughter's dead. Don't bother the teacher any longer." But Jesus just says to Jairus, "Do not fear. Have faith. Trust." So Jesus goes into the house and says, "The little girl isn't dead. She's just sleeping." And sits next to the young girl and takes her hand and says, "Talitha Koum," which is Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. Remember, the Gospels are written in Greek. But the writer of Mark decided to take the actual words in Aramaic, probably to make a point of how important it was. And Talitha Koum means, Little girl, I say to you, rise up. Jesus couldn't help but look at that little girl and see her as alive. No one's a goner to God. All people are alive. I think he says so in Luke. So perhaps this story isn't about physical death at all. The truth is, we are all in different levels of aliveness, different parts of our lives, and some of which feels like deadness. Perhaps we're clinging to a bad relationship, or an unfulfilling job, or are overly concerned with material things or status. We may experience setbacks. We may give up on a dream or a hoped-for goal. And of course, there's all the devastating things that happen in our lives. We may stick too long to a particular plan or have no longer reasonable expectations for ourselves or our family. We may stick to a prescribed set of rules. These things sometimes make us feel empty inside, like we're just going through the motions. We don't trust enough, have hope enough for renewal, for resurrection. But resurrection is our calling. That's what being a Christian is all about. Our attitude makes resurrection possible, and our attitude can prevent it from happening. The Holy One can bring back to life what is dead in us, bring back the joy and the passion and the hope. But we need to trust and be patient, like Jairus, so we can hear that silent voice inside of us say, Talitha Koum, my spirit is ready to fill you up. You can breathe again. You can dream again. Talitha Koum. I know it's very difficult to hold on to hope and to be an advocate for resurrection in the midst of all the misfortune and difficulties of life. We need to have patience and hope. Jesus moved at a different, often slower pace than we be comfortable with. But Jairus and our desperation won't rush God, and it won't drive him away either. There are certain people in this parish family who are always advocates for resurrection. You know who they are. They're always saying to each of us, Talitha Koum. They're always not only projecting hope and trust and joy, but they celebrate it and uphold it for everyone. I hope we can all take a lesson today. I know I can, from Jairus and those people in our parish who see resurrection, who see things through a resurrection lens, a resurrection set of glasses. And they spend their days waking and rising and trusting and rejoicing and always hold out hope for the seemingly impossible. And always see everywhere the possibility of resurrection. Talitha Koum.